See this tiny chip right here? This little guy might not look like much, but if you ignore it, it can turn into a full windshield replacement real fast. Today on Rust and Grease Garage, I'm fixing it myself using one of these Rain-X windshield repair kits. So let's get into it and see how all these kits actually work. So this is my Mazda's windshield, and this chip is pretty small, but temperature changes, potholes, even just time can cause this chip to spread into a full crack. Obviously, I'm not going to make this chip disappear, but the goal here is to hopefully reinforce that chip to keep it from spreading and hopefully make it a little less noticeable. The product I'm using today is this Rain-X windshield repair kit. It's cheap, easy to find, and claims it can fix chips up to about 1 inch wide. Inside this kit, you get the resin, the applicator, some curing strips, and a razor blade. One thing it doesn't include, but I highly recommend picking up, is one of these UV flashlights. It'll help when it comes time to curing the resin. The next step is to go through and clean the windshield. I actually did mine last night, and the reason why was I didn't want to go through and spray a bunch of cleaner on here and risk getting a bunch of moisture inside that chip. So I cleaned mine last night to give it plenty of time to dry. Also, I don't know if it helped or not, but rather than just spraying glass cleaner all over the windshield, I went through and sprayed it onto a microfiber cloth first, and then used my cloth to wipe down the windshield. Did that help minimize how much glass cleaner landed in the chip? Maybe, I don't know, but it was worth a shot. All right, the first thing I want to do is begin lining up this applicator with the chip itself. It's going to be a little hard to do because I'm going to have to kind of crawl over the car here. But I'm just going to get it kind of as approximate as I can. And then I'm going to use this, would you call it, an applicator tip here. And I'm going to try and line this up to where it goes directly over that chip. And I'm a little off, so let me reposition. And all right, I think I've got it all lined up there. Okay, now it says to apply 3 to 6 drops of the resin, depending on the size. And I'm going to insert the other tool here, whatever this is called. Okay, I'm just checking inside the car to make sure that the resin has gone into that chip. And near as I can tell, it looks like it has. But I'm going to pull the driver up just to relieve a little bit of pressure and maybe any trapped air. And then I'm going to drive it down one more time. So we're going to let that sit about 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll come back. All right, I'm going to go on ahead and take off this applicator. All right, it says if you need to, you can add an extra drop or two of the resin. And then I'm just going to put one of these applicator strips over the top. And now you can either pull your car out into the sun and let the sunlight cure the resin, or you can use that UV light and let the UV light cure it. All right, it's been a few minutes. I'm pretty sure it's cured now. I'm going to go on ahead and lift off the film. And then using a razor blade, I'm going to carefully scrape up the remaining resin just to get it even with the windshield. All right, moment of truth. And the chip is all filled in. Can't even feel it anymore. It just feels like a solid piece of glass. Well, it's definitely not invisible, but it's way better than it was before. And with that kit, for how cheap it was and how easy it was to use, I'd highly recommend it, especially if it prevents that chip from spreading into a full-blown crack. All right, now that we're done with the windshield, there's one more thing I want to do to this car, and that's to add a cargo net to the trunk area. Years ago, I used to have a car that had one of these in the trunk, and I fell in love with it. And ever since then, I've pretty much put these in every car I've ever had. Now, the Mazda didn't come with one, and I have found online, like eBay and places, where I can order a replacement, but to be honest, they're like $50. And I don't want to spend that much money for it. So I'm going to show you how I did some measuring and figured out how I'm going to install this. And I ended up ordering this little one off of Amazon for, I think it was $11. So let me bring you down here and I'll show you how we're going to get started. The first step to getting a net to put in the car is to first figure out where you're going to be mounting the net. In my case, it's going to mount here at the very back side of the trunk by the opening. I've got two mounting points here where those push pin type retainers would go. They're missing in my car, but essentially this is where that cargo net would mount to. And there's two matching ones on the other side as well. So now that I know where it's going to go, I need to figure out what size net I need. So to do that, I would just measure between those two mounting points, and then I'd measure across the trunk to those mounting points. That would give me my height and length of the net. Now, obviously, if you're going to use your factory netting, you know that, like in this case, this is a Mazda. If I were to order the net for Mazda, I wouldn't have to worry about all of that because it would come pre-sized. But in this case, I'm showing you how to do it as an aftermarket. So in this case, that's how I'm going to do it, is figuring out where it's going to mount and then the size of the net that I need. One of the problems with the kit I ordered online is it comes with these really small screws. And that won't fit into that retainer, where that push pin goes. It just goes in and pulls right back out. So that was probably the next thing I had to do, is figure out what size I needed. And for me, it's going to be one of these 5/16 lag bolts. This one's only about an inch long. It's all I had. But I will, and this will work, but I'll probably switch these out to 1.25 inch length just to give me a little bit room. But essentially what I'm going to need to do, these are the net attachments they give you, where these would just screw in, and then the net fits over this groove section. But it's a little small. The opening in here is just big enough for this little screw to go into. So I'm going to head over to grab the drill and make this hole a little bit bigger. So I've got a 5/16 bit in the drill. I'm just going to drill this hole out and make it a little bigger. And then we'll be able to take this over to the car and get it installed. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get these 4 mounts installed. And the push pin is still installed on this top one, so I'm going to get this taken out. I'm going to pull out this push pin here. I'll get the last one installed here. All right, now that I've got all the attachment points installed, I'm going to go on ahead and put the net in. And of course, this is that envelope style, so it's kind of two-sided. Well, with that installed, we can now take this to the store and see how well it does at holding our groceries in. All right, I just got back home, so I'm going to pop the trunk and let's see how these groceries did. Did everybody survive the trip? And hey, look at that. The groceries stayed, the net did its job. So between fixing the windshield chip and adding the cargo net, this was a couple of small, inexpensive fixes that make a big difference from day to day. The windshield repair should prevent a much bigger problem down the road. And the cargo net, it's one of those upgrades that you don't realize you need until you have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you like simple fixes like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what small upgrades you've done to your car that made a big difference. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.